Welcome to episode 57 of the 5-Year Real Estate Career Podcast. We welcome you here. Today's topic is a topic that is, why are you going to talk about painful experiences like tariffs? But today's topic, in a very positive sense, is tariffs in the U.S. housing market and what we need to do as agents to unpack all the atrocious news that we're hearing about how tariffs are going to negatively impact our industry. So welcome to the 5-Year Career Podcast. We're a virtual seminar in every single episode. And I am blessed to have great partners who are going to help us unpack this episode today. But before we do, I want to just ask, I want to tell you why this is so important. On today's call, we're going to unpack some things that realtors really need to know. And the first and foremost is that realtors who understand the trade policy and how it impacts buyer psychology and renovation cost and inventory are winning more listings. The question is, are you going to be one of them? Secondly, tariffs, are they really going to drive up renovation costs? Possibly, yes, but that just might make active listings that you have more valuable to the consumer. So smart agents are using this to justify higher listing prices and faster sales. And the most important thing about today's call is, do you have an elevator pitch? You know, that thing that you say to the consumer immediately that helps them change their opinion about what they've heard on the news. So I want you to, before we begin, imagine, if you can, starting a business with partners like us, people who can help you create quality, consistent, exclusive leads, and a business that allows you to create a business in 5 short years that will pay you abundantly for the rest of your life. For many of you who've been in real estate a long time, we know that might sound like hype, but with new trends and new organizations, companies, it's possible. So welcome to the 5-Year Real Estate Podcast. And I want to introduce my partners for today's call. Patrick Butler, we call him everything, but he specializes on helping small to mid-sized businesses, and he does it through affinity marketing. Mr. Go Vertical, Patrick Butler. Wave there, Patrick, and say hello.
Thanks, Skip. Thanks for the introduction. Looking forward to today's podcast.
Seriously, a guy who knows everything about foreclosures, bankruptcies, anything related to real estate. An excellent business partner. And also Eric Wilner. Eric is affectionately known as the Automatic Landlord, longest running radio show in the country. Super talented guys that are here to unpack today's episode. So as we begin today's episode, I think the most important part is really defining what we're going to talk about today. So Eric, what are tariffs and why should a real estate agent care?
Yeah, and it's funny, tariffs are like the big elephant in the room, right? Everybody's talking about it. Half the people don't understand even what they are. But in effect, tariffs are really a tool that a government uses either to protect their industry internally or to raise capital, in the form of fees for importing or products into our country. And where that comes in the play here, and where people are being, whipsawed around, especially in the media, is saying that because, a lot of our raw materials are imported and a lot of our construction materials are imported, that now costs of housing, the economy, inflation, and all that stuff are going to go up. Well, it's been no secret that we've been dealing with inflation. Supposedly, the government is getting it under control. At least, we're seeing efforts made to that effect. But the bottom line is, the more things change, the more things stay the same. And the important thing to understand is to be able to handle that question when it comes along. because today it's tariffs, tomorrow it's going to be something else.
Always.
Absolutely true.
So, Patrick, I guess that leads us to tariffs on lumber and construction. What's going on with that? And hey, I heard the other day, this is true, that people are actually taking out 30-year fixed rate loans with no pre-penalty to buy drywall for new construction. Is that true?
I have not heard that myself. That sounds like an interesting topic, though. But funny, we should be talking about this because I, as you may all know, am selling my house. We just put it on the market this week. I have my first showing today in about 51 minutes, right after this podcast. And I was doing leaf blowing, getting the house all primped up, ready for showing. And one of my neighbors pulls up in front of me in his car with his wife. And he says, "Hey," he goes, "what's going on, Pat?" And I said, "Well, we're getting our house prepped up for sale." He goes, "Yeah," and this guy is a pilot for UPS, and he hit me with a 30-second reverse elevator pitch. He says, "So what do you think about this real estate market? All this craziness that's going on with the administration and these tariffs rising up all the costs." He goes, "UPS, who he works for, he's a pilot for UPS, he says, laid off 20,000 people." I said, "Wow." And he goes, "Although there's 5 million employees." So I said, "That's not a really significant percentage unless you're one of the 20,000 people, in which case it's very significant." So
Absolutely.
my point for bringing this up is you never know when you're going to need your 30-second pitch to respond to something like that, because he was in his car. So I had like 3 seconds. And I said, Marty, I said, "I love it when there's volatility in the real estate market because it means people start paying attention." And I said, "I'm glad that my house is for sale right now and not waiting in the course of the next 6 months to sell, because I want to strike while the iron's hot." And I think one of the things that we all need to be prepared to talk about is, Eric, you said it, there's always going to be something. There was a great recession in 2008. We had a savings and loan crisis back in the 1980s. And even, the stock market tumbles here and there. All of these things create challenges. But Skip's question is, let's talk about some of the construction costs. So lumber and construction materials. According to some of the national home builders, Canada, as an example, supplies about 80 to 90% of all of the US softwood timber and lumber for construction. When tariffs were imposed, costs rose. And we started hearing things about builders building smaller square footage homes to keep the prices at par, but not giving as much product away. And that the current tariffs could be costing an additional $8,000 to $10,000 for a home. Now, let's unpack that, as Skip said really briefly. If you're buying an average median-sized home, cost $350,000, $360,000 somewhere in the United States today, $8,000 to $10,000, and I don't mean to minimize $8,000 to $10,000, is really a drop in the bucket. It's 1.5%. And depending on who you're buying from, if they're panic-stricken because of all of this stuff, you might get a much better negotiation out of them to offset whatever cost in the new construction. If you're buying a resale, that doesn't amount to anything because there is no cost. You already got the thing built. So this is where we as real estate professionals really need to consult with our clients and bring their level of anxiety down. So are they looking at new construction or resale? If they're looking at resale, tariffs don't mean anything to them. From the home seller standpoint, if they need to renovate their home, well, that's a consideration for sure. But it's also important that we help our home sellers understand what makes sense to renovate and what doesn't. Sometimes not putting in new wood floors is almost an advantage if you offset the buyer's acquisition cost because they can do their own flooring. So everything gets put into proper perspective, but we've got to articulate that. And Eric always says, value not articulated is value not appreciated. So these are all things that are very, very important to us. But builders, of course, are being impacted by this. So it's something that we can pay attention to. So what does this mean on the surface? Let's just boil it down. On the surface, the sky is falling. Home prices, new construction is going to go through the roof because of these tariffs. Well, the tariffs will possibly be brought back to normal anyway, so that may just be a short-lived thing. But what this means to smart buyers, folks, is that the time to buy is right now. before the future impact of these things may or may not happen. So deal with the devil you know, not the devil you don't know. If you're ready to buy a home and you can afford to buy a home, don't try and time the market. Buy now while you can afford it. You can always adjust your financing. And if we know that somebody may be downsizing their property, such as the fastest growing demographic in our country, the seniors, waiting may not be in their best interest for a couple of reasons. They may not have that much time left, number one. But number two, we always want to deal with the facts. So speculation can be very dangerous. That's why the stock market allows you to bet in both directions. You can short a stock or you can bet on the growth. So tariffs, we need to understand what they are, but most importantly, that they're not going to create a massive panic in the marketplace. We just need to be able to navigate through it. Skip, back to you.
You know, everything you said about that is kind of what it's going to do, what you said is going to add to what I'm going to say now about renovation and repair costs going up. First and foremost, if that happens, it's probably going to happen 60, 90, 120 days from today, not immediately. But what's really important about that is that the best homes on the market are fully renovated homes. Those are the ones that sell the most quickly. But in light of all the press that it depends on what TV station or radio station you listen to, whether this is positive or negative, half the country finds this negative, half the country finds this positive. But here's the most important thing. The people that don't renovate because they're worried about the merchandise that they need, the dollars they need to spend to make that renovation, are going to be better buys for the consumer who's ready to buy right now. And so a lot of people are going to put off renovation when they actually should make it, because the house that sells the quickest on the market today is always the home that has been renovated, upgraded, polished. And so what this really means is a smart buyer can negotiate a far better deal on a property that's on the market where the seller decided not to renovate it because of higher costs to renovate, and the buyer will find a much better investment. And that leads us to the next topic on here, which is the impact on consumer confidence and affordability. So Eric, talk about that a little bit. What I'm noticing is that people are just taking in too much information today, a lot of it bad information. So let's just talk about how that confidence can be upgraded today.
Yeah, confidence is a big deal. And, sometimes, perception of reality is greater than the reality. And so it's important to have the information, to be that steady hand that, you give them confidence when you have confidence. You see, consumers and buyers for the last couple of years have already been dealing with the high interest rates, the tight supply, the inventory issues, the inflation issues. And yet, first-time home buyer activity this year is now up 10%. You add volatile home prices due to tariffs and materials and all this other stuff. The average person, it becomes information overload. But as I was listening to you guys talk, I was just thinking, should I renovate my kitchen? Well, here's the real question. If I renovate my kitchen and it costs me $25,000, will the value of my house go up more than $25,000? Plain and simple. That's all that really matters. And if it costs $30,000 to do it, and my house will only go up $20,000, then now is not the time to do that renovation. A, and B, a lot of times the renovation that you do is not the renovation that the buyer wants. So it's often a good idea to, either give an allowance for it. You can make some concessions for it. But the bottom line is to give that confidence that you know how to handle all these different alternatives, that you can understand and maybe guide them on those issues of if there's ROI in the improvements. There's certain things like what Patrick was doing, curb appeal, clean, orderly, neat, uncluttered. Those are time tested, and those cost nothing. So, like I said, all this tariff induced inflation conversation, it appears to hit the low and middle income buyers market more, but it really only affects them more if they allow it to in their mindset. We're always going to face objections, from all sides. Why is this home $30,000 more than last year? The house on my street sold for 30,000 more, 30,000 less. Tariffs, you can throw that into the mix, but the conversation really is, you got to calm your people down. You got to give them, get them back on track to where they really want to be. If the important part is relocating to be closer to family or because of a job, these temporary ups and downs in the market are nothing, like Patrick said, a drop in the bucket in the bigger picture. So on the surface, all of this seems to point to negative aspects of the market. I would in fact disagree. There's a lot of opportunity on the horizon. As Skip said, every time that there's volatility or uncertainty, that's an opportunity for you to be confident and then make confident buys on the other side. So, according to Warren Buffett, the old saying, right? Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful.
Yeah.
We often say that if you're a home buyer or a seller, you're dealing with just one property, not the entire housing market. Use the trends to your advantage. Remember what your goal is, and remember, every coin has two sides. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Patrick, where are we now though with tariffs? Have they even had any impact at all on it?
It's funny, Skip. I think about all the things that affect the real estate market, and personally, tariffs are the last thing on my mind. I mean, I'm still looking at what's going on with inventory. I'll tell you something that should be talked about more is the default rate. And I'm going to come full circle on this thing, but according to HUD, which we do a lot of short sale processing and management, HUD has reported that their default rate on their loans as of like last month hit 6.5%.
Wow.
That is wow. Now, folks, the typical default rate for mortgages across all of history is about 1.5% to 2% considered normal. People lose jobs, people have health issues, and they go into foreclosure. During the Great Recession of 2008, the number hit about 10%. We're at 6.5% default rate right now. So that's, forget tariffs. There's some opportunity and some challenges there. And Eric, you said it, every coin has two sides. I think back to when I was but a young sweat hog in Floyd Wickman's training class. And Floyd Wickman always said, when handling objections, he goes, there's nothing better than using third-party information. For example, back then, we had newspapers and magazines, and you'd clip these things out and share them with people. Well, now you can do it online. But one thing that he said was extremely important. He said, depending upon what argument you're trying to make, there's plenty of media to support either side of it. So
Amen.
and you can show, hey, look, tariffs shouldn't be a problem for you. They're the very reason why you should be jumping in the pool right now. Look at this. And that's going to happen with everything under the sun. Oh, interest rates are higher. Well, guess what? That means more buyers are on the sidelines, more opportunity for you to come in and buy. Eric, you talked about renovations, and man, I couldn't agree with you more. Make that decision. If I need to potentially replace something, am I going to get more money for it than I'm putting into it? Otherwise, that should be your selling point that, hey, I'm pricing my property because I didn't do this. So it's a great advantage for you as a buyer. And in fact, I'm willing to offer some seller concessions towards closing costs or buying down interest rate rather than renovating a home, a room in the home that may not meet your needs. There's all kinds of ways that we can turn our opportunities into bigger opportunities, whether you're a home buyer or a home seller. So where are we right now? I mean, I watch enough news to keep myself modestly informed. It looks like the whole world is kind of parrying and adjusting themselves as to what they're going to do in the global economy. It may end up working itself out where everybody wins. And in the meantime, while everybody's freaking out, we should be taking action. The prices of some of this stuff, the building construction materials, lumber has cooled down a bit. So I think, Skip, to your point, it's not a long-term, this is going to be a great depression of costs and goods and services and supply chain issues. Remember that? Supply chain issues during COVID? That really
yeah.
didn't do anything. Prices still went up in real estate values. People still bought them. So that seems like it's 100 years ago. Tariffs may seem like a distant policy, but it's just important, folks, that we know enough about them so we don't seem uninformed. But at the same time, don't let that be an objection, because it's just a feeling somebody may have. It's not a real reason why somebody should not be moving ahead. And we don't really need to have our finger on the pulse of what the cost of lumber and nails and screws are. Just understand what that means in the bigger picture. And again, as we talked about, strategizing with your customers, new construction versus resale, home seller versus home buyer, and you will win the race every time, because what you're doing is talking about real estate with people that can either buy or sell it. And that's always the smart thing to do, whether the subject is tariffs, the color of paint, or that shag carpeting is coming back into vogue again. So, Skip, I'm going to turn it back to you, because I know that as we wrap up this
Well,
podcast, we've got an
I am
offering for everyone.
excited to wrap this up with 2 points. And point number 1 is everything we've spoken about today is good. We're talking to real estate agents on our podcast to help them, but our job as a real estate agent is to educate. And so the one thing that we should be doing, if you attend this call today, is taking this knowledge out to your database, because your database has a mindset, either it's a good time or a bad time to sell. And by providing taking one thing off the table, tariffs are going to impact my ability to sell, so I don't want to put my house on the market today, is an important thing. How do we take it out to them? We take it out to them with a text message. We take it out to them with a phone call, once a month phone call to our database. We take it out by going to social media with a short message about how tariffs are going to help buyers buy more real estate. So there's 1,000 different ways to take this message out to people. The most important thing as a quality real estate agent is to get the message in the hand of the most important people, which is the consumer. And so with that, I want to tell you the second point of every time we hold our podcast. We bleed leads. And when I say that, we bleed leads by educating consumers. And so this month, in the month of coming month, excuse me, we are now in the month of May. On May the 13th, we're going to kick off a first-time homebuyer presentation. And on May 27th, we're going to start our investor presentation. And for real estate agents who are on this call today, the biggest challenge most real estate agents face in business is not having enough buyers to speak to, buyers or sellers to speak to. And in many cases, a buyer has a property that they have to sell in order to buy another property. So our webinar program, our Do It For You webinar program, is designed to help real estate agents create tons of quality leads. And what is a quality lead? A quality lead is somebody that leaves a real phone number, leaves a real email, and a real name, not Bozo the Clown with a made-up phone number. We're talking about people that are seriously interested in the topic of our webinar. They register for it. They go into a campaign marketing strategy. And that's what we're about at the 5-Year Career. We're in the business of helping real estate agents learn topics like what you learned today, and then take that message out to the consumer through webinars. So we want to encourage you. Patrick, I don't know if you could put that up for us or not.
Yeah, for sure.
The invitation to our next webinar. And listen, if you're a real estate agent and you're watching this call, we want to encourage you to register to attend our next webinar, which is called Fearless First Time Homebuyer. Eric, do you have a comment about how effective it's been for us helping agents create more leads?
Well, I'm a big fan, and I've watched the great results that we've been having, and those people who have already participated with us. Because number one, you get to talk one to many. Number two, it is an implication of credibility. It's instant credibility when you're at the front of a webinar that you're talking again authoritatively, confidently about what's going on in the marketplace, what things to do, what mistakes not to make, and so forth. So, we've seen, regular tenants. We've got this down to a formula. Let's just look at it that way. That a good business has a good system that can consistently produce the results, and that's what we're getting. And what's the results that everybody wants? Leads.
Leads. Yeah, you can take a really bad agent and make them a great agent by giving them enough quality leads. So with that, folks, we want to thank you for joining today's 5-year podcast. And if you want more information about how to manage this challenge, this temporary challenge with tariffs, or you want to really discover how to create tons more business through quality leads and webinars, we encourage you to reach out to us. And that phone number is 561-861-2366 to get a lot of information about how we're changing the life of real estate agents by helping them with more lead generation. So thanks for joining us today on our 5-year career podcast. We hope that you found today's topic interesting, and we appreciate you joining us each week, every Friday, for our podcast. And remember, don't just listen. People who just listen and don't take action never successfully build a large, successful real estate business. And for more information about us, you can always go to our YouTube channel, and that's up at the top left on our screen. Patrick, you want to point to that for me there? Can you see it? Top left, or go to our regular website, which is 5-year real estate career, to learn more. We thank you for being with us today. We encourage you to join us each week for another topic that will help you generate more real estate business. Thanks for being with us. Goodbye.